Welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Grizzly, and today we are looking at Gannon Stauch's case, which we've covered in detail on this channel. If you haven't yet checked out the playlist, please do. There's more than 8 hours worth of content there for you, as well as reading through the entire probable cause affidavit. We also had a members only stream over the weekend where we reread that probable cause affidavit, as well as some reports of how Letecia Stauch has been behaving in jail and her letters to the judge. So if you do want to see that, I'll put the link to those in the description box for you as well. So let's look at where we are with the case today. Today's March 20th, 2023, which means the day has finally arrived for jury selection. The trial is finally going to happen. So let's look at what that timeline looks like. It's been over 3 years since 11-year-old Gannon Stauch died, and on Monday, the jury trial for his accused killer and stepmom, Letecia Stauch, is scheduled to begin. Letecia Stauch is accused of first-degree murder for allegedly killing Gannon in January 2020 and then driving his body to Florida, where his remains would later be found by a local sheriff's office. Now, if you've been following the case, you know she didn't just drive to Florida. She actually had previously put his body in her car and stored the car at the airport overnight, and then had driven to a different area north of their home and dumped his body there. Then she went back to collect his body and then drove all the way to Florida to eventually dump his body close to a bridge in Florida. From everything we know, she was incredibly calculated. This seemed very premeditated as well, based on her Google search history, her text to her daughter, calling the school to say that Gannon wouldn't be there on the day that he was murdered, and things like that. Now, on Monday, which is today, depending on when you're watching it, March 20th, 2023, Stauch is scheduled to begin her jury trial after several delays since her arrest in March 2020. The trial will begin with 2 weeks of jury selection, where the prosecution and the defense will work to select a 16-person jury for the trial, 4 of which will be alternates. The reason for the 2-week-long jury selection process is due to the likelihood that many potential jurors will be unable to be present for the entirety of the 6-week-long trial, as well as expected difficulties with jurors being exposed to previous media coverage of the case, according to Judge Gregory Vanner. To accommodate the anticipated length of jury selection, opening statements are scheduled to begin on the afternoon of April 3rd. So today, the jury selection begins, and it's already been scheduled for opening statements by April 3rd, 2023. Delays in the case have occurred in part because of the 2 sanity evaluations that needed to be conducted on Stauch, as well as difficulties navigating through the Rona pandemic in 2020. Initially, Stauch, 39, pleaded not guilty to the charges, but in February of 2022, Vanner granted her permission to change her plea to not guilty by reason of insanity. To accommodate Stauch's plea, a sanity evaluation was conducted by the Colorado Mental Health Institute at Pueblo, and a second evaluation was conducted by an expert hired by Stauch's defense attorney. The first evaluation, conducted by CMHIP, found Stauch to be sane, Vanner said at a hearing in August. The findings of the second evaluation, conducted by the defense, have yet to be revealed, and as of last week had yet to be filed to the court at all. The lack of the sanity report put Stauch's trial in jeopardy, as 4th Judicial District Attorney Michael Allen indicated at the pretrial readiness conference on March 9th that not having the second report prior to the trial was a serious complication. Allen said that if the report was not received before the trial, the prosecution could move to exclude the expert conducting the sanity evaluation, who was referred to as Dr. Lewis throughout the hearing, from testifying at the trial. Allen said not having the report borders on bad faith from the defense's expert. "This is a disrespect to court deadlines," Allen said. "I've never seen anything like this." Vanner, who shared Allen's frustrations, gave a hard deadline of Wednesday evening, March 15th, for the second sanity report to be filed. "Convey to your expert that it's not a suggestion, it's not a guideline, it's a deadline," Vanner said. "If she, Dr. Lewis, wants to testify here in this case, it has to be done by the deadline." Court records show that Stauch's defense attorneys filed a report, the contents of which are unknown to the court on Thursday. Stauch faces 13 charges, including first-degree murder, child abuse, and tampering with evidence. In addition to the first-degree murder case, Stauch also faces a second case in which he is accused of attempting to escape from the El Paso County Jail in May 2020. Stauch was arrested in South Carolina in March 2020 and has been in jail ever since. She faces life in prison if convicted of first-degree murder. Now, I'm just going to read you this example here of what Letecia Stauch has been up to in jail and why she got that additional charge of wanting to escape. At approximately 1900 hours, Miss Teresa Borchard asked to speak with me. Miss Borchard is an inmate at the El Paso County Jail. Miss Borchard said she has received a couple of letters from Miss Letecia Stauch. Miss Stauch is an inmate at the El Paso County Jail. Miss Borchard stated the letters she received from Miss Stauch contained written plans for Miss Stauch's escape. I asked where these letters were, and Miss Borchard told me they were in her cell. Miss Borchard told me that when Miss Stauch has her hour out, she stops by Miss Borchard's cell number 4, and talks with her. Miss Borchard also explained to me that Miss Stauch will pass notes to her and other inmates by sliding the notes under their doors or through the door jamb. Miss Borchard told me this is how she received these notes from Miss Stauch, by Miss Stauch sliding them through her door jamb. Miss Borchard explained to me that she is lower level bunk restricted and does not go upstairs where Miss Stauch is housed in cell number 10. On 5/5/2020, Miss Stauch was housed in Alpha 2. Miss Stauch is classified as segregation from all, seg all, meaning she will not be moved around this facility with other inmates. Miss Stauch is not to be housed with anyone else, and she will not have out time with anyone else. Miss Stauch is also classified as a full restraint escape risk, meaning she will not be transported outside of this facility without full restraints being placed on her wrists and ankles, and her wrists will be secured to a belt around her waist. At approximately 1900 hours, I went into Miss Borchard's cell and interviewed her. This is where Miss Borchard gave me both letters she had received from Miss Stauch. Miss Borchard told me that Miss Stauch has been talking a lot lately to other inmates in the ward. Miss Borchard said that Miss Stauch told her she's been making plans to escape and was looking for Miss Borchard's help. Miss Borchard told me that she had not read one of the letters written by Miss Stauch because Miss Borchard had been in court all afternoon. Miss Borchard told me that she received the letter before she went to court when Miss Stauch was on her hour out. During the interview, Miss Borchard stated that Miss Stauch said she was planning on breaking out her cell window and measured herself. Miss Stauch said that she will fit through the window. I asked Miss Borchard why Miss Stauch would choose her to help Miss Stauch escape. Miss Borchard said it was because she was Italian and kind of the bad boy. Miss Borchard stated Miss Stauch thought if she offered Miss Borchard money, she would help her escape. I asked Miss Borchard if she was going to give Miss Stauch any help, and Miss Borchard said, "No way. That is why I told you about the letters to begin with." Miss Borchard said she knows about Miss Stauch's charges, and she doesn't want to be involved or have anything to do with her. Miss Borchard said if she did anything, it would be to use her for commissary. Commissary items are food or hygiene products that inmates can purchase. In the Alpha 2 ward, the inmates are only allowed to purchase and have correspondence material and personal hygiene. I asked Miss Borchard if she was planning on helping Miss Stauch escape. Miss Borchard said no, and that she's looking at her own time now and wouldn't do something stupid like that to make her own situation worse. Miss Borchard told me her and Miss Stauch had a conversation the morning of May 18th, 2020, and Miss Stauch spoke about using the broom handle to bust out the window in her cell. Miss Borchard said that Miss Stauch told her she would fit through the window because she had already measured herself. I received 2 letters from Miss Borchard she claimed were from Miss Stauch. Both letters had similar handwriting. In the first letter I opened, it was written that the writer's GPA was putting $75,000 in an account for a private attorney. It was written that the account was open for the author's daughter to use as well. The author wrote to Miss Borchard saying she would much rather use the money to survive, if you know what I mean. In the letter was written, "You have my word to make sure we are MIA. I got us covered." The letter written stated that they just need to set up some access points. The letter written said that once her and Miss Borchard get access to the state bank and funds, they will be good. It was added in the letter that the letter was written partially in code because her letters get opened. It was written in the letter about a visit she was having tonight at 8 p.m. Miss Stauch did have a professional visit at 2000 hours on May 18, 2020 with a social worker for an hour and a half. This shows that Miss Stauch is the author of this letter. In the second letter, the author wrote that she'd been looking for days at her window. The author stated she already measured and drew something that resembled the window in her cell. This drawing can be found at the bottom of this letter that she wrote. The letter stated asking Miss Bouchard to check the broom piece since Miss Bouchard gets to use that item on her timeout. The author added in her letter she was dead serious and asked Miss Bouchard to just think hard. This letter has similar handwriting to the first letter that spoke about Miss Stauch's professional visit that she had in the ward. At the bottom of the letter, the author asked Miss Bouchard to throw the note away in the toilet. At approximately 2300 hours, Deputy Jennifer Jago, EID 19048, and I went into Miss Stauch's cell. I told Miss Stauch to put her shoes on because she was being moved. During this interaction, I did not ask Miss Stauch any questions. Miss Stauch was placed in full restraints and escorted to a cell in the medical section. Once Miss Stauch was removed from the cell, Deputy Jago and I were the only people inside of her cell. No other inmates have access in Miss Stauch's cell. Miss Stauch comes out by herself for her hour out. During a shakedown of Miss Stauch's cell, I found another letter addressed to Sweetie. This letter had similar handwriting to the first two letters I received from Miss Bouchard. In this letter, the author makes a comment that if something comes up on the news, like she's no longer in the jail or is missing, to not be afraid. On the back of one of the pages was the name Harley, which is the name of Miss Stauch's daughter. Miss Stauch has her daughter named as her next of kin in her booking information. The author wrote for this person to just keep normal and focused, underlining these comments. She wrote for this person to trust her on this and underlined it. At approximately 0010 hours, May 19, 2020, I placed 3 letters I recovered in evidence locker number 71 and locked with a master padlock. This was to preserve the evidence. The letters were temporarily placed into the evidence locker until they could be scanned and permanently entered into evidence. I have nothing further at this time. Case status active. And so here you can see that additional charge where they say, I'm respectfully requesting Letecia Stauch, who's currently incarcerated at the El Paso County Jail, be charged with the following charges. Solicitation to commit escape, F5, and that was signed, dated 1st of June 2020. So if we just quickly look at the 13 charges that Letecia Stauch is facing, Count 1, murder in the first degree. Count 2 is also murder in the first degree, but an additional charge because the victim is under the age of 12. Count 3, child abuse resulting in death. Count 4, tampering with a deceased human body. Count 5, tampering with physical evidence. Count 6, 7, 8, and 9 is a crime of violence. Count 10, crime of violence as well. 11, 12, 13, crime of violence. This entire document we have gone through before. As I say, it's in the playlist, and if you want the actual document itself, I do put that on Patreon if you are interested. Now, many of us ask ourselves, why would a stepmother murder a 11-year-old sweet little boy? Why? So in the conclusion from the probable cause affidavit at point number 187, they say, based on Letecia's internet history, it is reasonable to believe that she was unhappily married to Mr. Stauch and had some degree of resentment towards the family as a step-parent. Furthermore, the days before Gannon's murder, Letecia appeared to be researching a move to another state to a 2-bedroom apartment. Now, if you want a refresher of the terms that Letecia Stauch had typed into Google, here are some of them. Find real military singles. Parenting should be 4 people, not 1. I'm overdoing all the work for my stepkids and their mom doesn't help. Mom advice from stepmom. If you aren't involved in your kid's life, you are shitty. My husband's ex-wife does nothing for her kids. I wonder if my husband's ex-wife is sending me a card since I raise her kids. I wonder if my husband's ex-wife is sending me a Valentine's card since I raised her kids. And then she searches that again. One day, some people will wish they treated you differently. One day, some people wish they treated you differently. Why should my husband choose me over family? Find me a rich guy who wants me to take care of his kids. Find a guy who wants me to take care of his kids and get paid. It's crappy some parents don't care for their kids or buy them presents. Parents are those who put their kids before their nails. My son burnt the carpet, how do I fix it? That was on the day of the murder. You can see it on the right-hand side there. That is what she was researching on Google. Will humidifier help if exposed to smoke? Smoke affects will humidifier help. Smoke from fire affects will humidifier help. School is out. Is it okay for my kid to stay home alone? Son is sick, but I have to go to work. Son is sick, can he stay home? Suede repair for sofa. El Paso Sheriff's Office number, which is when she called 911 to report Gannon missing. If you forgot, Letecia Stauch had made up an entire story about some guy called Eduardo, which she later changed to a name Quincy Brown with a friend called Terrence. But initially, this guy, Eduardo, was hiding in the basement when she got home that day with Gannon, and Eduardo had apparently essayed her, and Gannon had jumped on his back. It was a whole story. It makes no sense at all. There's no video evidence of anyone called Eduardo ever going to the house, and honestly, it was just ridiculous. These were some of her deleted search terms where she said, "Find me a new husband, book. I feel like I'm just a nanny, not a stepmom. Husband uses me to babysit his kids. Are there any free money to move away from bad situation? My husband never posts about me but does everything else. My husband only cleans up for the army and not me. I'm just a glorified babysitter. Find a new husband. Send my husband sexual messages and he ignores them. Make my husband want me more. I feel like my husband uses me to babysit his kid. Find a guy without kids." So based on that search history, it seemed like she projected all her resentment towards her husband and his ex-wife onto Gannon Stauch, because there were actually 2 kids living at that house, which were Gannon Stauch and Lena Stauch, Gannon's little sister. But how incredibly sad is that Gannon was shot in the jaw and stabbed at least 18 times. And then his body was moved all over the place and all her lies were concocted, but eventually put in a suitcase in fetal position and just thrown off a bridge in Pace, Florida. I also want to remind you about this little bit here where Letecia Stauch literally signed up for a fake polygraph test. So they say on February 18th, 2020, at about 10:14 hours, Letecia called a number. I conducted research on that phone number and learned it was associated with fakepolygraph.com. During that call, Letecia stated she never got a confirmation for a test that she paid for. Letecia provided the spelling of her name, and before disconnecting the call, the unknown male stated he would resend her the results to her email. So we together as well on that member stream went over fakepolygraph.com, and as dodgy as this service is, they actually blocked Letecia Stauch based on the questions that she wanted produced on her fakepolygraph.com result. So at point 182, you could say the unknown male stated her report was blocked by management based on the content of the questions and stated that with any illegal activities, they reserve the right to not send the report. These are the questions that Letecia Stauch had submitted. Do you intend to answer these questions regarding your stepson truthfully? Yes. Is your birthday August 4th, 1983? Yes. Did you participate in any way in causing harm to your stepson? No. Did your stepson return with you to your home? Yes. Did you participate in any way in causing the death of your stepson? No. And of course, here they make a good point. I submit to the court that if Letecia had nothing to hide, she would not have to pay for fake polygraph results. Now, a big question that everyone has is, will the trial be televised? So far, they say Judge Greg Vanner said that 2 members of the press, 1 print and 1 electronic, will be allowed in the courtroom for jury selection only. Only audio recording will be allowed during this process. As of right now, no cameras will be allowed in the courtroom during the trial. However, what they have said is that there will be a WebEx link shared, which means that anyone can access that link from my understanding and that you can tune in and watch the actual trial. I know that Law and Crime Network and possibly Court TV will be streaming onto their YouTube channels. And as you know, I don't generally stream trials on my channel. I rather provide summaries where I can, because of course it's very long hours, very long days, and there's always a lot going on in true crime, and I cover many cases at the same time. So it's really hard for me to just sit and watch for 8 hours a day and just focus on one trial. I would say that would be my weakness, as well as I have no legal expertise whatsoever. So I usually leave that to the law tubers who are actual lawyers with YouTube channels who can break down what's happening in the trial for you. I find that's way more valuable than a random person sitting and streaming the trial. So if you do like trial prep, that's generally what I do. I did it for the Murdaugh trial too. I didn't cover the trial, but I did do everything possible to prepare you for the trial to know exactly who is who and what happened and what's the timeline and all of that, which a lot of people have said is very helpful. So I did the same in the Chandler Halderson case. I've done the same in many other cases, and that is what I'm doing here. I hope that this has prepared you for Letecia Stauch's trial. I'm not sure exactly what we'll see and when, but if there's anything that I can update you on, if there's anything very interesting that happens at the trial that I will need to make a summary on something, then you will find that right here. So if you are into timelines, case details, documents, trial prep, and things like that, remember to hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you don't miss out on when I'm next making a video for you, a short, a live stream, a premiere, or anything like that. I really hope that there won't be any more obstacles or delays. This trial just really needs to go ahead. There needs to be justice for Gannon Stauch. If you wouldn't mind, please like this video and share it. Hashtag Gannon Strong is one hashtag that the family uses as well. Hashtag Justice for Gannon and hashtag Gannon Stauch. And you can also use hashtag Grizzly True Crime if you want to. Thank you so much for watching. I am South African, living in the Netherlands. In case you're new here and you're wondering, what is that accent? Like, where's this lady from? People ask me that all the time. So I'm from South Africa, living in the Netherlands with my Swiss husband and my cat Fury, which you will see on the outro. And I have two YouTube channels. This one, Grizzly True Crime, where it's true crime with me, Grizzly K. And then I also have a second channel called G&T, where we look at some more entertainment news or dumb criminal stories, or I reenact troll comments and things like that. So if you're interested in that, you can also check that out under my recommended channels. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.